Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Forza 92 podcast. I'm Jack, joined once again by Luke. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. How are you? How about yourself?
Yeah, getting there, mate. Just enjoying the nice weather. Feels like this summer has been a pretty miserable one. So there's been, 2 or 3 days of prolonged nice weather here. So I'm kind of making the most of that. But how about you?
Yeah, no, I'm the same. Off the weekend, my first trip, well, QPR's first trip in the Championship back home to Loftus Road. So looking forward to that on Saturday. So yeah, if we got a bit of nice weather to complement the 3 points, that would be quite nice.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm Leicester at home to Cardiff this weekend. I'm not going to make it because we're doing our annual trip to Newcastle, so that should be good. And on Sunday, I've already said to the boys, like, we are going to go for breakfast and try and catch the World Cup final, because big news. I mean, the biggest news, I'd say, of the week in football terms in this country is, they've made it to the World Cup final. First of all, what an achievement that is for the England women's team, but also Sarina Wiegman, she's got to a final in her last 4 tournaments. That's an incredible record, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like outrageous. Like I was thinking, like this could be the start of a real era of dominance coming off the back of the Euros for England, but like it's not an England era of dominance. It's like a Wiegman era of dominance, like even longer than that. So yeah, it's like it's unheard of, really, to do that over a couple of teams. It's just like speaks wonders of her, really.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the game on Wednesday, but I thought they were absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed watching them play. I thought considering like everyone was kind of not on their backs because of losing Lauren James, but everyone kind of sort of thought that they wouldn't be able to function properly without Lauren James. But some of the players really stepped up to the plate. I mean, I was really impressed by Millie Bright. I thought she was absolutely dominant at the back. I thought Carter and Greenwood were as well, but Lauren Hemp's one hell of a football player. Like she's got such good balance and such good composure and determination. Like they are. I mean, I've watched a lot of the tournament. I can't say I've watched every single game because I haven't, but I've watched, because I've been off. Like I've watched so many games, and they genuinely are. Like I think they deserve to be in the final, and that's not me being biased. I thought Australia were very good, France were very good, and they were unlucky to go out to Australia. Spain have been excellent. Like they're the 4 teams kind of that got to the semi-finals, well, apart from France, were the teams that really stood out to me. Like, do you think that? So I saw a news report earlier that Sarina Wiegman's been lined up to maybe replace Gareth Southgate. Do you think of all the female managers, she might be one of the ones that could be the first one to step into the men's game? Or
Yeah, I mean, saying that, actually, I've got my Forest Green shirt on. You obviously dipped into women's management for a little bit of pre-season, but yeah, it's always Emma Hayes is kind of the one that's linked from the WSL, is the kind of first name banded around. Even I've been linked with her, so she's always the name on everyone's lips in the WSL, kind of like the top of the top. But yeah, in terms of as a whole of women's football, she would be. I mean, I wouldn't. Replacing Gareth Southgate is going to be a hard task for any manager, but I don't think stepping from England to England would be that bigger problem for her. But it is a huge leap because nobody's ever made it. But if someone is going to do it, it is at the highest level. But if someone's going to do it, why not? She's got a winning mentality. Clearly, she knocks a World Cup out and a cup. And if just for England's got the World Cup and the Euros sorted, then I mean, why not?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the one thing that impresses me about her most is, like when the chips are down or the game's maybe not going the way it should, or there's quite a lot of anxiety and it's quite frantic. Whenever the camera pans to her, she's just so composed and so relaxed. Like you see a lot of managers like gesticulating and like being very, very emotional on the touchline, which you like to see, but she never looks like she panics. She's just like, she kind of trusts that her players are going to do the job, and she makes very positive like changes and substitutions that seem to benefit the team. And I mean, halfway through the tournament, she had to kind of change the way she was playing as well, because we obviously lost players to suspension, lost players to injury. She's so composed, and I think that alone kind of really would lend itself well to going over to men's football, because if she did make that switch, because like I don't think it would phase her that much. I think she would be so stoic and so like just unfazed by it that she would probably do a reasonably good job. I think the second that things start to go wrong, she could come under fire because of certain sections of the media and certain types of people on things like football Twitter and social media that might get on her back. But yeah, I just think her personality wouldn't let it phase her at all.
Yeah, and in fairness, I think club football is, well, I see club football as a bit more of a toxic place than international football, because obviously if you're England, everyone's England at the end of the day. So and I think in fairness to Southgate as well, he's created a pretty nice atmosphere around England as a whole compared to what it has been before him. I think, and generally, I mean, there's always Southgate out critics, but as a whole, when we get to a big footballing tournament, I think he's created a bit of a nicer atmosphere. So in terms of kind of avoiding that early media like outbreak, I think he's kind of set the tone for a more positive England, the media and the fans. So I think she could have quite a nice step into that. And I think club football could, yeah, like you say, the media could turn sour pretty quick. But England, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I think if she kind of came into the environment that Southgate's created, it's quite a good environment, because you look at a lot of the players that come into it, they don't have time. They don't have a hard time adjusting to life with the England camp. Like, sort of when we were kids, like if you went to play for England, you were expected to kind of hit the ground running straight away. None of these players, like Grealish, it took a while for him to bed in. Like Maddison, it's taken him a while to kind of bed into the side. It happened with Foden as well. Like I think there's quite a good kind of encouraging, like supportive network within England at the moment. And I think because she'd be going into a positive environment that was set up by Southgate, she'd probably do well. So I think there's a chance. I mean, if anyone's going to get it, I think she'd definitely be sort of in the top 2 or 3 candidates, I reckon. But we'll see. There was quite a lot of backlash against what Forest Green did, even though I thought it was perfectly acceptable. I don't see why it's not an issue. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, going back to our main topic, because obviously this is an episode of the Championship Roundup. We are going to talk about the Championship, obviously. And we will start where I think after last week, I think we should start, and that is that after all the negatives we said about QPR last week, they managed to get 3 points.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say completely against all odds, because it's the Championship, but 3 points after that, it's such a good response. Luke, how are you feeling about it?
I'm delighted. I'd just like to completely write off anything I said last week. Point off the playoffs. Win home switch this week, and who knows? The sky's the limit. But no, that's the Championship, isn't it? Especially in the early days when there's not too much, like everyone's kind of winning and finding their feet, and like no one's really putting a proper run together. Then you can always look up the table, and like it was a disaster on the opening day of the season. There is no escaping that. But we put in a proper shift against Cardiff for 70 minutes. We were the better side. Sinclair Armstrong got his first goal, and it's just he's an absolute joy of a man. Like just a raw player, a lovely person, and just so happy for him to score his first goal for us. And he could be a really important player for us this season. I'm as much as I'd like to get ahead of myself, like you said we'll talk about Cardiff in this podcast, but I'm not sure how much they'll compete this season. But because other than when we had got our lead and kind of sat on it, they looked better then. But generally, I was completely surprised by how much we were able to kind of not dominate the game, but I think over the 90 minutes deserve the 3 points.
Yeah, I think I was very surprised when I saw the result come up, and that wasn't that I was really surprised that you were going to win. I thought you could probably go there and get a point, but because that's what we said, didn't we? Said that if you can go there and get a point, it would be a good point in the end. But yeah, to nick the win, I think it'll probably do Ainsworth the world of good. I think it might get a few people off his back, because he's showing that he can go to clubs that, despite all their signings, might still be in and around where QPR will be in the table. But you're probably really happy, because if you carry on in that vein, then actually no, I say you won't be happy. You'll be sad, because actually the further away we are, the higher up the table you are, the less likely you are to win the shirt bet. So
no, that's true. It's a win-win though. It's a win-win.
For a £30 shirt.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take, if we keep surging up the table, I'll quite happily splurge the £30 to get another kit. But I mean, I always like to get hope. I always say, like, and it's the same with like England in the World Cup. You've got to get excited while the hope's there, because otherwise you just never get excited at all. So like, I've got to get excited while we're looking good, because we may well go and get pumped by Ipswich this Saturday, and we've just lost in the Carabao Cup to Norwich last night. So, you know, I've got to enjoy it while we're still in there, because in 10 games time we might be 12 points off the playoffs and 1 point off the bottom three. So I'm excited for now, and I'll think about the consequences of the shirt bet closer to the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We're definitely not fun police here. Like, I think if you can't celebrate a win, if you can't celebrate any kind of, like, it's kind of going back to last week where Arsenal, like, people were sort of shooting down Arsenal and their celebrations after the Community Shield. That's what you're in football for, is to win games. It doesn't matter who you're playing against, whether you're playing against a league, like if you're Man City playing against a League Two team in the Cup, or whether you're playing in Community Shield final, you should want to win games. And if you can't celebrate winning games, then I don't know when you can. Like this, and kind of on that, like, there seems to be a bit of negativity around. I mean, not negativity, because I think it's a strong word. I still think there seems to be quite a few people who still need convincing about Leicester. Like, I think that a lot of our fans, and maybe even neutrals as well to an extent, kind of don't really understand, like, still don't understand the championship. Like, I'm not being funny. To go to Huddersfield with Neil Warnock, like I said to you last week, I knew exactly what that game was going to be. They were going to be physical. They were going to make it hard. It was going to be a proper battle, and it was going to be a test of our mettle. And to be fair, for a bit like the Coventry game, for large spells of that game, we weren't very good. But that's the hallmark of good sides, is that you can still grind out wins, and that's exactly what we did. It wasn't a glamorous performance. It wasn't. It's not one that will go live long in the memory. But like you've just said, you take 3 points all day, because you don't. That could be the difference between top two in the playoffs and not finishing the playoffs, or staying up. So I'm not going to delve into that game too much, because I'm not being funny. There wasn't much to dissect, to be honest, other than the fact that I think Harry Winks is an absolute Rolls Royce of a player at this level, and Wout Faes was probably the best player on the pitch, even though Mavididi got man of the match. That's all I'll say on it. But I think Huddersfield, I lie. Huddersfield, I thought looked quite good, actually. I mean, I think a lot of people were writing them off, and I even said that some of their fans were unhappy about their performance against Middlesbrough. I actually thought against us, they gave us a real battle, and if they kind of perform like that for the rest of the season and against some sort of sides with less quality, they'll definitely grind results in and probably stay up again. I think they are not helped by a lack of funding, but they are kind of the modern Neil Warnock image, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen them quite a few times, and if when Neil Warnock came in last season, you had to look at the fixtures and you're just like, there's no way that they'd stay up, because the fixtures they had were an absolute shambles. And that's why that Leicester victory is so good, because like they came out of that and they by far, I think the bottom seven or whoever was in the relegation battle last season, they had the worst of the fixtures by far. So they are capable to take scalps. And you said, like, I think I can't remember who it was had a chance. Maybe Hellick had a chance for them, which he should have scored. And then it's a different game. Like Huddersfield, if they can get ahead in those kinds of games, you're going to struggle. And a 1-0 victory at Huddersfield is something quite common that we'll see for the better sides in the division. But the worst sides will struggle when they go there. And I think they will be able to just about survive with Warnock. And I've just generally, I'm never hugely unimpressed by Huddersfield. Although it's not ever excited me completely, I rarely look at them and think that's a horrendous performance. They don't put in many of those.
Yeah, I think if they had the opportunity to really invest and bring in some genuine, like, quality players, I don't think they'd be flying up the table, but I think they'd be a fairly solid championship outfit. I think having Sorba Thomas back was quite good for them. I think Josh Garoma was quite dangerous on the other wing. The player that I was impressed with the most, though, I think there was one player who I sort of said even during the game, like, it might have just been a one-off performance, but I was really, really impressed by Jack Redoni in midfield. I thought he was really steady, really composed, combative. I just think that he probably wouldn't suit our style very much, because he was a bit of a sort of disruptor, but he could play a bit. And I was really impressed. He's a player that I really didn't know about too much until that game, and I was really impressed. And having since looked at some of his stats, he's a pretty impressive operator at that level. I think he might be one that maybe they might look to cash in on eventually, but they've got some decent players there. And I think if they just had the opportunity to invest a little bit, I think Warnock would probably be a little bit happier, but they just don't seem to be able to spend money for whatever reason. Which kind of in the Championship at the moment, when you look at the disparity, it's quite difficult for them. And speaking of disparity, we were both impressed yet disappointed by the Coventry Borough game, in the sense that Coventry's response to losing to Leicester was incredible, but we're both a little bit concerned about Borough, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I had them in the playoffs to start the season, and obviously the biggest issue I think is that they've lost two of the best goal scorers in the division, so that doesn't help, and not really replaced at all on that front, or not like for like anyway. Obviously, there's still time, but like 2 weeks left of the window, people are going to know they've got that on money to spend, but not great at the back and not scoring goals is not a good start to the division. And one of my mates is from the start, to be fair to him, has been pretty confident that Michael Carrick will be gone early doors, and they were riding a bit of a wave last season. He came in and did really well, to be fair to him, but the kind of momentum took over. But when times are tough, which it is for the first time for Middlesbrough, then for Carrick anyway, we'll see what he's really made of now.
I mean, on the reflection of the game, I mean, there wasn't that much in it, to be fair. Like, I'm just looking at the stats now, and I mean, it was 12 shots to Coventry, 12 shots to 14, 5 on target to 2, 3 off target to 4, 486 passes, 497 passes. Like, Coventry just did exactly what they didn't do against Leicester, and that was take their chances, it seems. But I do think that Coventry, if they can't reinvest in the squad, I think that losing Hamer is such a big blow for Coventry. And yeah, I don't think it's going to derail their season, because I do think they've got time to reinvest and bring in a quality player. But he's one of the best players in the Championship. There's no two ways about that. Losing him, like similar to Borough, losing Chuba Akpom, that it's such a big blow for both teams. Who do you think will probably? I mean, I think I know the answer, but who do you think will probably come off worse from that?
I think Middlesbrough, because obviously, Coventry have lost Gyökeres and now Hamer, so that's two huge ones. I think Wright looks like a quality player from the few kind of brief appearances he's had for Coventry. So, and then Sims, I've been disappointed with, to be honest, but it's only 2 games, but there's a lot of money on him and a lot riding. I think there's been a bit of disappointment with his early kind of performances, but I think goal scoring wise, they might be able to share them in forward areas with Golden as well. Yes, they'll need another midfielder, and they might drop off a little bit, but compared to Middlesbrough, they obviously haven't replaced Akpom, and then they've got Archer as well as goals to replace, who came in halfway through last season, was unbelievable. And I just think goals are hard to come by, and I don't like Crooks is not going to score you enough goals to really put you up there. Rogers, I was impressed with, to be fair, in midfield against Coventry. From the few bits I've seen, he looked pretty promising, but they need a 9, and maybe, I mean, Archer's still linked away from Aston Villa, so if they can get him back, but I can't see him dropping to the Championship again. But yeah, they need a goal scorer desperately.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think, like, if you take goals out of any side, then that side probably becomes significantly worse. Like, and that's not even to say, like, obviously that's a very on the nose thing to say, but it's a confidence thing as well, isn't it? It's like, if I look at Leicester, like, there's one thing I say about Leicester at the moment, it's that we've got quite a lot of good players in sort of those sort of supporting areas, as particularly now we've signed Cesare Casadei as well. But all 3 of our strikers are still absolutely out of form. Like, they absolutely stink at the moment. If we could get one of them firing, or we bring in somebody that's in really good form, then you've got a chance. And that's what Coventry have done. Yes, Ellis Sims, like we said, I wasn't that impressed with him against us. He's not quite settled to the league the same way that Haji Wright has, but they've gone and brought in 2 strikers. Haji Wright definitely riding a crest of a wave after last season, and he looked really good in the short cameo against us. He's obviously got his first goal against Borough. That's a really positive move. Borough now have to go and make that same positive move and bring in somebody who's going to score goals. They've got a bit of money for Akpom. The problem they've now got is that clubs are going to know they're desperate. So the price just goes up and up and up unless they try and bring someone in on loan. Surprises, though. You wanted to talk about Hull.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had Hull 7th in my prediction, and I just had a bit of a feel good feeling, to be honest. I think they've made some decent signings. Admittedly, some of the signings I've not really got any idea if they're decent or not, but it seems quite positive. They've just got Scott Twine through the door, and in general, I've always been a big fan of Liam Rosenior. I think when Rooney was doing his stint at Derby, I think he was like kind of the real brains behind that. And since he's come into Hull, it was a bit of a torrid place before, but I think he's just added a real stability and obviously he didn't get the win on the opening day of the season and then knocked out the Carabao Cup. So that I thought I was maybe going to be in my words, but a really good result this weekend. And I think I won't be surprised if they're knocking on the door of the playoffs for the majority of the season. Maybe it's a step too far, but from what I can see, I'm pretty confident that they'll be up there. Having said that, it was Sheffield Wednesday who have been by far the least impressive side in the division so far.
Yeah, I think as well, if I look at Hull, like they're very top heavy. They've got a lot of quality players in advanced positions. But if I look at their defense, like that's not to say these are bad players at all. But if I look at the back five that started that game, you've got Matt Ingram in goal, Louis Coyle, Alfie Jones, Sean McLaughlin, and Jacob Greaves, all of which are very capable defenders. But they're not as good, I would say, based on last season and maybe previous seasons as well. I don't think they're as good as some of the defenders that they'll be, some of the defenses that they'll be up against for those playoffs as well. I think that might be maybe where they've let them down. I mean, like you said, Sheffield Wednesday, I think against Southampton, they were really trying to be like, it was kind of attrition they were doing. They weren't really blowing teams away, and yet they've managed to score twice against Hull. And like you said, I thought they were really poor. Whether I'm being very harsh there, I don't know. But yeah, I think if they could maybe bring in another defender before the end of the window, I'd probably agree with you. But I don't think they'll be anywhere near the bottom of the table this season.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. I think that there's always a dark horse and or dark tiger in this case. I will. So that's what I'm going for my dark horse. So basically,
fair. I mean, I've got to eat my words a little bit as well because one result at the weekend which really shot me in the foot is I said in my predictions I think that Sunderland might go up automatically and Preston might get drawn into the bottom three, and then Preston went and beat Sunderland 2-1 at the weekend. And that was a terrible prediction on my part. I mean, it still could happen. I mean, there's still 44 games to go, but Sunderland have looked a little bit ropey at the start of the season, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they have. And it's a weird... There's always a club, and I don't think it's talked about that much. In the Premier League, it's always banded around, but in the Championship, not so much. The second season syndrome is a big thing, and so is kind of a playoff hangover. We've seen many teams fall off a cliff after being in the playoffs. I think Barnsley went down a couple of seasons ago off the back of a playoff campaign. Huddersfield last season were in the playoffs and fell off a cliff. So it does happen that first season of so many highs can't be kind of done again. And although I don't think they've been stripped of that many players, maybe there just isn't that. I don't know what's missing really. And like you said, there's still 44 games to go, and I'm pretty confident they'll be up there.
Yeah,
but it's a young squad for a lot of the players they've brought in, so there is going to be a bedding in period for a lot of them. And I haven't been overly disappointed with the performances in the first two games, but yeah, it just seems there doesn't seem to be the feel good factor. Like the momentum kind of ran out. Like unlike Ipswich, it's their first season, they've kind of come in and hit the ground running. Sunderland did that last season, but they can't keep the momentum because they've got to start again now, and they've got to start from scratch. And I think once they get going, maybe, but yeah, it's a bit concerning that they haven't picked up their first points, especially against the Preston side that hadn't really impressed that much before.
Yeah. Do you think that? I mean, I always hate to attribute form to one player in particular because you should be good enough to function in a system. But do you think that maybe they are just missing the genuine quality of Amad Diallo?
I mean, I think if you lose a player of that caliber, I mean, you've got to. I think as a whole, the squad, like you say, it was good enough without him. But those games where you just need a goal, you need a moment of magic, you need something like the playoff semi-final. Like they just needed something out of nothing, and he provided that and on many occasions. So I think the Championship is full of those players that can just spark that. And if your team's got one of those, then you're generally going to be up there if the rest of the squad can compete as a whole. So yes, they probably need someone to catch fire. The momentum thing's huge. You just need one player in those forward areas to just catch fire. Like you said, for Leicester, his confidence is huge. Like if Iheanacho starts firing in the goals, then he could like if he starts soon, he can hit 20, 25 goals this season if he gets the confidence up. But yeah, Sunderland missed that. And you've got Jack Clarke who's unbelievable, and there's quality in that squad, but they just need someone to catch fire.
Yeah, and unfortunately for them, there's still very, very strong rumours linking him with a move to Burnley, so losing him as well. But they do have Patrick Roberts. They've now got Joe Bellingham. But I think the thing that I was looking at is when I look at their team, they started with. I mean, this is what it is on Sky. And looking at it, I can't imagine it being slightly different, because they haven't got an actual named striker on the pitch. They started with Bradley Dack up front. And I mean, they didn't really have, I think Luis Semedo is a striker, but they're still missing Ross Stewart. And I think there's maybe lacking a focal point to your team, particularly a player like Ross Stewart, who's very, very influential on games, even when he's not scoring, because he's such a presence. That makes a huge difference as well, I think. I think Sunderland will be absolutely fine. I don't think they're in any trouble. I think we might, if their form continues, Tony Mowbray might be looking at maybe one of the first ones to be moved along. Yeah. But again, they could turn it around next week, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we need to address the only other team with a 100% record in the Championship, other than Leicester, of course, and that is Ipswich. They beat Stoke, who, again, another team that I've tipped to do quite well this season, probably wrongly again. And by all accounts, they played exceptionally well, and Stoke didn't really get a sniff in the game. Again, only 2 games in, but Ipswich are proving to be quite strong at this level.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like you say, it's 2 games. I will have a better knowledge of that after this weekend. Hopefully I'll be coming into it saying, no, it's a load of hype about nothing, but we will see. But yeah, you can't fault it. They were the better side against Stoke, who to be honest, I expected them to go to Stoke to go there and not turn them over, but kind of silence it a little bit. But no, they like you say, they've come in and they're in the top 2, 2 out of 2. So can't really fault it. I didn't expect them to. Well, I don't expect them to stay up there for too long, but it's I think they're going to have a comfortable season. But like we said about so many things, it's the momentum and the confidence. If you can keep trickling along and keep picking up wins early on in the season, and you can get to kind of the winter time, and you're like, hang on a minute, maybe we should be up here. And many people think they will anyway. Then at that point, confidence can take you a long way. So I don't think they will continue it for a huge long period of this season, but so far there's nothing to say that they can't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that momentum's such a big thing, and I mean, like, as a Leicester fan, I can like testify to that. Like, I think the main reason we went on to win the Premier League is because we had like 7 wins out of 9 at the end of that season. Like, if that doesn't happen, if we sort of crawl over the line, I don't think that momentum's there. But Ipswich finished the season like so strongly last year. I think that there is a feel-good factor. It's a big club, good support. Like, they will upset a few teams. I just don't think they'll be in the top 2 push. After watching them a little bit more, I think they could potentially be in and around the playoffs. I think top 2 is maybe beyond them, though, because I think squad depth goes a long way. I think Southampton, even after losing Ward-Prowse and Lavia, will still be very strong. We're only seeming to get stronger because we're signing a lot more players that fit Maresca's system, and there's always 10 teams in the sniff for the playoffs. So I think they'll be there or thereabouts. Top 2 is maybe beyond them, but again, happy to be proven wrong. But speaking of things that we actually got right, this is a very, very big thing on this podcast. Most of my predictions in particular end up not being correct whatsoever. But we actually got one right last week. I feel like I need to get like a buzzer or a klaxon to like announce this. But we said both of us agreed Southampton Norwich could be an absolute goal fest. And
Yeah.
it was. It finished 4-4. I mean, what a game that is. Exactly as we called it. Not that we are experts or savants of any kind, but, that's an incredible game. Who do you think will be the happier out of that, though?
It's a weird one because I was watching the managers' interviews afterwards. Both of them seemed pretty happy. I think both of them have got plenty to worry about from that game as well. Norwich, I think, will probably be the happier, but I mean, Southampton away from home. No, Southampton at home, weren't they?
Yeah.
So I think keeping that unbeaten start is maybe okay, and scoring goals is certainly not going to be a problem. I think that could kind of ease some worries because of last season, but to have kind of their Adams and Armstrong getting that confidence, I've said it like a million times in this episode so far, but like having those two kind of getting that form early, I think both of them are on 2-2 now, so yeah, they'll be happy with that.
Armstrong's technically got 3, hasn't he? Because he was given that the one off Nathan Tellier.
Yeah, so I think both teams will be happy with it. I think I don't know. It's one of those. It's a bit of an anomaly, but I think both teams will come out of it pretty happy with that performance from both sides, but just plenty to work on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really like both of these teams, and it's really painful for me to say it because when I was at the game, and if they're listening, they won't appreciate me digging them out like this. But I said I was in the head of steam. So have you been to Huddersfield away before?
Yeah.
So at the train station, there's 2 pubs at either end. We're in the head of steam. We're watching the England game, and I said, and I firmly stuck my colours to the mast. I was like, Southampton currently have a better balanced squad than Leicester do. I really like Southampton. I think they will be a very, very, very strong team this season, even after losing Ward-Prowse and Lavia, because if you look at the lineup from that game, neither of those two played. And yet I'm looking at their team, and if I learn out the whole thing, you've got Bazunu, Kyle Walker-Peters, who was 2 seasons ago one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League form-wise. Bednarek, who I've always been a bit sceptical about. Stevens the same, but Manning was fantastic last season. Carlos Alcaraz, Smallbone, Stuart Armstrong, Nathan Teller, who's one of the best players in the Championship last season, Adam Armstrong, and then they can bring Che Adams off the bench, James Bree, Joe Aribo. Like they've got a phenomenal squad, really, and all of the players kind of suit the system that Martin wants them to play. And Norwich. I mean, I think that they could either be brilliant because they are kind of Championship merchant, shall we say, or they could be mid-table again like last season. But when Norwich click into gear, they're fantastic, aren't they? Let's be honest. That was. I'm really glad we got that prediction right because it kind of showcased both the best and worst of both teams, really, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Norwich have been. I mean, last season was a bit of a nightmare for them, and it has been a lot of that just inconsistency. Like they could have got the quality in that squad to be brilliant, but the thing that puts me off that this season, is they definitely have the ability to stink the place out and just go on a run of a form that they just can't get out of. They have had some players like to come in and maybe sort that out. Ashley Barnes' experience will probably help them out, and Rowe he can obviously come through for the youth ranks, but looks unbelievable the first few games. I think he scored in all 3 of the games. Unfortunately, scored against us in the 97th minute of the Carabao Cup last night. He looks a player. So yeah, scoring goals generally isn't too big a problem. But yeah, I think they've surprised me. To be honest, I thought it would be more of the same as last season, but it looks like they've maybe turned a corner. And if you can compete with Southampton with that squad, then you're doing something right.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You mentioned Jonathan Rowe, who I think exactly the same as you. Been really impressed with him so far. Based on the early games of the season, I was thinking that maybe between us we could try and come up with like maybe 5 ones to watch. Now they don't necessarily need to be like young players, but they can be players who are like more experienced, or just 5 players that we think are in for potentially really good seasons this season. Like Jonathan Rowe was going to be on mine because it's kind of like a breakthrough season. Is there any? I mean, I don't know if you agree with that. If maybe he doesn't quite make the cut, but I think he started the season so strongly. He seems to be quite key to how they are kind of setting up at the moment as well. Like he's playing in that sort of midfield role. Like, do you think that he will continue in that vein, or do you think he will?
Yeah, I mean,
drop off. Or?
There's nothing to suggest otherwise, and he's not like one of these young players that has started the season that's had a few minutes here and there. Like he's gone first game of the season in from the start, and so he's obviously got a big part to play. You don't turn up on the first day of the season with rotation in your squad. It's a foot fit squad, and he's obviously in the middle of the parts. So he's obviously backed. So I can't see him like having a bad season. I definitely think quite happy to have him on the 5.
Okay, so Rowe kind of goes in there. We're not necessarily putting these in any order, by the way.
Yeah.
Just going for it. Who anyone else stick out for you? Like anyone else that you'd sort of argue to be in the 5? Or
I mean, from a Plymouth perspective, just having watched him last season, Ballymumba could have a really promising season for them. And I think if he's doing well, they'll be doing well. Obviously, had a great season last year. I was surprised that Norwich let him go, because obviously the next step was for him to enter the Championship, and for Norwich to let him go on a permanent, I was a bit shocked. But obviously that first game of the season, he was unbelievable, and then they picked up another result this week as well against Watford, which is easier said than done. So he's an exciting one. I'm excited to see how his season goes, and if he catches fire, I think he'll be in for a big move somewhere not too far away.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We do seem to be kind of going, even though we said they don't have to be young. Another player who you and I'll appreciate me saying this, I kind of want to see. I mean, I don't know necessarily. This isn't me necessarily saying he needs to be included in the 5. I kind of want to see how Harrison Ashby gets on this season, because obviously he moved from West Ham to Newcastle last year. Has been tipped for quite big things. Like was initially supposed to be the understudy for Trippier. Obviously, their escalation has gone probably beyond what they expected it to. They brought in Livramento, so that meant Ashby's been pushed down the pecking order. He's gone to Swansea. They obviously lost 3-2 to West Brom at the weekend. I feel like Ashby is somebody who I want to keep my eye on, just for the sake of, like, just for Ewan's sake, but also when a player gets tipped to be a very, very good player, you kind of are intrigued to see how they get on when they're gifted their first opportunity for first team football.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of that in the Championship, players coming down, and this is it's a tough league to carve yourself out of, like for your first season of like proper football. But we've seen so many like players, it being the making of them really. The likes of Harvey Elliott's had a few seasons down here. Fabio Carvalho, and they've gone on to, I don't know why I'm just picking Fulham players that have gone to Liverpool, but they like, it really takes, if you can make it in a Championship, then like it's good for the future for them. So yeah, if you can have a good season, then why not?
I think one player, this is a player that I will put in my 5, and I'll happily do so. I think a player that's got a point to prove is Siriki Dembele.
Yes,
went to Bournemouth, was fantastic at Bournemouth. They got promoted. Obviously, they struggled for the first half of the season. He kind of got phased out of the team. Now has obviously moved to Birmingham, got an opportunity to impress again. He's starting for them. They've started the season reasonably well. I think he's probably got quite a big point to prove. I think he wants to maybe show that he is deserving of a place in the Premier League, because I really liked him at Peterborough. I really liked him at Bournemouth. Hopefully I won't like him so much this season at Birmingham, because if they are competing with Leicester for a spot near the top, I'd hope he doesn't have a good season. But the football fan in me sort of thinks he's a player with bags of ability, pace to burn. Do you think he'll come good again for Birmingham this season, or do you think he's washed, as they say? Or...
No. I think it's a really smart signing. Obviously, with Chung going to Luton, that was kind of the replacement, slightly different players, but I think they got a real good deal out of that situation with the money that they've spent on them. So I think it's been a great start for the season for him. He's been exciting. One of their better players in both games. So yeah, I think it's a great shout, and I think he'll, like you say, have a really good season.
So far we've got Rowe, we've got Dembele, and Bali Mumba. Anyone else for you who you think like really stands out?
What was that? Sorry,
I said, anyone else for you who really stands out? Like, hang on, I'll remove you if you want, and then add you back in.
Okay.
Okay, apologies for that. Luke had some technical issues. It would not be one of our podcasts without some sort of technical issues. So just sticking to type. So we had 3 players. We had 3 ones to watch so far. So we had Bali Mumba. We had I've forgotten now. To be fair, who else do we have? Bali Mumba, Jonathan Rowe, and
Dembele.
Sarika Dembele. Who else did you have? I've got one more, but I'll go for you first if you've got anyone else. It might be the same one.
Selfishly, I've got to put Sinclair Armstrong in there. He's got his first goal of the season, or is it a QPR player this weekend? He's very raw, but if there's any like hope, I've never seen so much hope pinned on such a young man. Like the fans love him. He seems just like one of those players that everyone just warms to. He's got such a lovely personality. I don't know if you saw his post-match interview after scoring, but it just seems like a lovely man, and he's so exciting to watch. He's got pace for days. His end product isn't there. However, a goal and an assist against Cardiff kind of shows us that he might be heading in the right direction. This season might not be the one for him, but he's going to have minutes and he's going to be exciting to watch. And for us, that's all we've got our hopes to look forward to at the moment. So hopefully him.
I mean, yeah, I think he does seem to be quite an exciting sort of young player, particularly in like a questionable time for QPR. So I think it's always good to sort of pin your hopes on that. I was going to pick a couple of Leicester players, but I thought probably not, because actually when you're playing for a team that is sort of one of the out-and-out favourites, it's hard to be one to watch because there's kind of an expectation on you. The other player who I was really impressed by, kind of my last inclusion, was Adam Wharton at Blackburn. I thought he was really, really strong at times last season in a Blackburn team that actually started to falter towards the end of the season. But I think he's a very, very strong, capable player at this level. I think he could be in for a good season. And I think if Blackburn don't really kick on, he could be one that's maybe out the door. Another sort of honourable mention, because when Leicester played Blackburn in the Cup last year and they beat us, Tyree Stolen absolutely ran the show. He's a good player as well. But Adam Wharton's kind of my pick there. So yeah, we'll finish up on the Championship there, because I've got, obviously we didn't record an episode with Ewan this week. He's on holiday. He's sunning himself up in Dubai. Lucky man. So we're going to play, I know we played Fergie Time last week, but we're going to play Obscure Footballer of the Week this week. And this player is very obscure, but I've picked him because he had spells in both the Premier League and the Championship. So he kind of fits the bill perfectly, to be honest. So Luke, I know you've heard this before. You probably get the gist of the game, but I'm going to read you off a load of facts and you have to try and name this player based on the facts that I give you.
I'll just put it out there that I don't think I can quite live up to the heights of you on these obscure footballers. I very rarely get them, but I mean, I'll give it my best go. Disappointed myself last week in Fergie Time, so hopefully I can bounce back with a win here.
Yeah, to be fair, Ewan has been either really good at these or really bad, and it has to come down to like the very last clue. So if you can try and get one before the very last clue, then that's a start. But I will start with the hardest one. If you can get it off this, if anyone ever gets it off this, then I will. I mean, the only time somebody would get it off this is if it was actually them. So date of birth, 11th of October, 1980, making them 42 years old.
Okay.
And they were born in Brixton.
Right.
Actually one that I can pronounce this week. Started their career in 1998 with Gillingham and ended their career in 2016, playing a total of 434 games, scoring only 9 goals.
No idea so far.
Yeah. Got any idea on sort of position on the pitch or anything like that?
I mean, I'm guessing it's either a defensive midfielder or a centre back or a prolific goalkeeper potentially.
Like who's that? Who's that one? Rogerio Seni, who used to score like free kicks and penalties. Most notable spells in sort of the Premier League were from 2005 until about 2012 ish, where he spent time with. He signed for a club in 2005, and then was a keystone of their team for a few years before being loaned out to the same team twice, and then to the second team that he's kind of most famous for playing for.
I don't know why, but Gary O'Neill's in my head. But I'm pretty sure it's not him.
No, I think if Gary O'Neill was listening, he'd be really upset that you think he'd only scored 9 goals in his career. So I won't give you the club that he was at because I think that's the club he's most famous for. But his 3 loan spells were with Sheffield United twice, and then with Watford, who he then signed permanently for.
So I'm thinking about. So I need to think of Sheffield United and Watford centre back, probably.
He then went on to play for Bristol City, Blackpool, Portsmouth, and then finished his career with Dagenham and Redbridge.
Oh, I'm never getting this. I'm not feeling positive.
He made 14 appearances for Jamaica.
What? Right. Jamaican. I don't know that many Jamaican centre-backs to be off the top of my head.
I mean, the most obvious one would, of course, be Wes Morgan.
Yeah, but it can't be him because that doesn't seem obscure enough. No, I don't. I'm still way off.
Okay.
Oh, it's not. Is it Adrian Mariappa?
No, it's not. It's not. That was an excellent shout though, because has played for Watford, of course. His honours. I'll give you his honours first. Won the Football League Second Division playoffs in 2000. Won the championship in 06-07, if you can remember who won the championship in 06-07. And then got Gillingham Young Player of the Season, Gillingham Player of the Season, and then Player of the Season at this team when they won the championship.
Right, so they've won the championship. Oh, this is a test here. I don't know why Jamaican centre-back. I can't think of a single Jamaican centre-back. So championship winners, maybe West Ham. That might not have been them. No, I'm still nowhere near it.
Okay, the final clue I can give you, because it's quite an unglamorous player. The final clue I'll give you is that the main team that they're most known for playing for is Sunderland. Was there between 2005 and 2012.
Oh God! Right, what's that one guy's name? I don't think he was Jamaican, was he? Titus Bramble was not Jamaican.
No, but you're on the right lines there.
Who could have possibly been there? I haven't got it.
I'll give you an extra clue. This might help you. It might not. This person is the cousin of Ethan Pinnock, and he supports Arsenal apparently.
I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to give me, unless
it's not. I'm literally just reading the Wikipedia page now, just to be like, see what I can come up with.
I haven't got it. I'm sorry. I've failed.
Hang on. Let's see. Played famously under Roy Keane.
I think everybody's just screaming at me, but it's not.
Probably not. Because this one just... I've watched a lot of Premier League years this summer, and I've got like a list of players that I really want to use.
I don't think I've ever got one of these, by the way. No, the day I get one, I'll be ecstatic.
To be fair, some of them are really hard, and I've been quite lucky that like I've got the ones that I've got. To be fair, like there's just, I think me and you are kind of on the same wavelength with them. Do you give up, or do you want to just have?
No,
like
I'll give up. I'll give up.
I'll give you a chance. You just say like 3 players. Any 3 players you can think of, and see if it sticks.
Sorry, I need 3 Jamaican players. It's just tough enough.
I don't know if he's really known for being a Jamaican player, to be fair, because like he only played for Jamaica for 2 years, and it was sort of towards the end, like towards the later stages of his career. But
now Stephen Corker, but that's not Jamaica. Didn't he play for like Sierra Leone or something like that? But it's not him.
No, I can't remember. Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't remember who he played for, but it wasn't. Yeah, he did change his nationality for a bit.
No, I've lost it. I can't. There's nothing in my head. And Fitzhall, he wasn't Jamaican, was he? No, and I would have never gotten it because there would have been a QPR, I think.
Yeah, QPR would have been in his career.
No, it's not there. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to give up.
Are we submitting?
Yeah.
So the player I was looking for was, and I'm going to say his full name because it's just quite entertaining, Nyron Paul Henry Nosworthy.
I never would have got that in a million years.
Nyron Nosworthy, what a player. He was, I don't know why, when I was like younger, just because his name just used to entertain me. He was always one that I would sign on, because Leicester were always sort of in the Championship or in League One. He was always one I'd try and sign with Leicester on FIFA when I was younger. Really odd, don't know why, but yeah, so a really good player.
The obscure knowledge is not up there clearly.
Honestly, people ask me. I was at my sister's the other week, and my nephew was having his nap, so we were waiting for him to wake up so we could go out and do things in the day. And I was just like, Premier League is on, I'll stick it on, and literally like I was just adding names to this list because you just see players and you're like, they're well known enough because they've played loads of games, but they're kind of players that you forget about.
Yeah.
Like the one I did with you and last week was Stuart Parnaby. Like I completely forgot he existed. Like I just no idea. But yeah, Nyron Nosworthy seems to fall in that category, unfortunately. Yeah, so that brings us unfortunately, like disappointingly, to the end of our this week's episode. What are your plans this weekend with the games? Are you going to watch QPR?
Yeah, first game. First QPR game of the season actually that I've been to. So looking forward to that. A bit nervy, but after 3 points, like just good to be home again. So I'm happy. What about yourself?
So we are playing Cardiff at home. I'm not there, unfortunately, because we're doing our sort of annual trip to Newcastle that we do because one of my best friends lives up there and it's his birthday. We've gone up every year since we finished uni. So unfortunately, missing the game. It always seems to be a home game the week that we go up. Last year, I got lucky because we lost to Southampton that day. So I got lucky, but I'm feeling a little bit more confident this week. But we'll see. Yeah, so that brings us to the end. Please don't forget to check out our charity of the month for August, which is Mind. And we shall see you next week. Thank you for listening again, guys. Cheers.
Bye-bye.